Good afternoon. My name is Eleanor Scully, and I am joined by Sarah Sumwalt, our Director of Social and Emotional Learning. And we are thrilled that you're joining our webinar this afternoon to talk about how Langley School balances academics and social and emotional learning in our increasingly fast-paced world. As I said, I am Eleanor Scully. I'm the head of the Langley School. I have been an educator for all of my professional life and worked in various independent schools in the greater Washington, D.C. area. My doctorate is in the field of human sexuality education with a focus on gender, and it has been a delight to be the head of the Langley School for the last 4 years. Sarah Sumwalt is joining me. This is Sarah's first year at the Langley School. She is our Director of Social and Emotional Learning. Sarah is a licensed clinical psychologist, with a background in working with children, very young children and young adolescents, both in private practice and in school settings. Sarah's work in her doctorate has also focused on looking at the dynamics of friendships in middle school and how students are affected by those issues at that pivotal time in their lives. She has a wealth of experience both from her work in private practice and her work in schools, and she is assuming a new position at Langley, a unique position as Director of Social and Emotional Learning. We are going to share the PowerPoint this morning, so you'll hear from me in the beginning, and then Sarah's going to do a bit more of a deep dive. This is an area about which we are both passionate, and we are thrilled you're joining us, so thank you for being here. We had a PowerPoint last week, a webinar, and if you missed that last one, you can always go to our website and pick up and see recordings of past PowerPoints. So thank you for being with us. There will be an opportunity at the end of our webinar to ask questions, and we will do our best to save time to make sure that you have a chance to ask some of those questions. Our agenda for today is pretty straightforward, although this is a really complex topic, so we're going to do our best to kind of give an opening framing to the conversation, and hope you'll come visit us and learn a little bit more about what we're doing here at Langley. What is social and emotional learning? Well, first and foremost, Langley has always been a school that has been invested in raising children who are kind, confident, excellent friends and citizens of the school community. And so we've long been known for creating a community of connected parents and students who invest in each other and in productive relationships. What social and emotional learning is now, though, has really grown a lot in the advent of the last, I would say, 10 years of research that has come to the fore, explaining sort of how social and emotional learning actually affects the cognitive and emotional development of young people. And we're going to dive into that today. We're going to talk about why social and emotional learning is so important at this particular time in our culture. Obviously, there's been, as I mentioned, a robust amount of research done on sort of the cognitive neuroscientific implications of social and emotional learning. But also we're seeing trends, generational trends, in how young people are growing up in ways that are different, and that is affecting their social and emotional needs. And the increasing presence of technology in their lives, which is mediating how they have relationships and how they engage with each other and their families. And obviously some changes in the workforce. So now more than ever, it's vital for school communities and parents to partner around creating environments for children that really advance their social and emotional development and provide a safety net really for them to think critically about this important part of their identity. Langley's approach is really quite unique. We start young. You can see in this picture, we've got some of our youngest students depicted here. We believe that if you start thinking about social and emotional learning in the earliest years, you actually privilege the most advancement in this area for kids. This is not something you kind of put off until high school or young adulthood. Just like reading, just like math, just like any foundational skill in life, you have to begin in a developmentally sequenced way, and you have to start young. Sarah is going to tell you a little bit about how our approach is unique, so I will save that to a future slide, but I think you'll find it really inspiring, I hope. Just a quick snapshot of the Langley School. We are a preschool through 8th grade school by design and intention. We stop at 8th grade because we believe that students need an opportunity to find a high school fit that is right for them at that stage of their development. We are co-ed in McLean, Virginia. 38% of our families identify as diverse in some way. We award $1.8 million in financial aid on an annual basis, and we have a really powerful student-teacher ratio that allows us to get to know children in a very nuanced way. I think at the hallmark of our school is this belief that the student-parent-teacher partnership is at the heart of any good educational experience, and we do a lot to nurture and develop that. If you ever come to Langley School, you will hear me say this many, many times. But our belief is that we tend to your child's social and emotional growth not to supplement their intellectual achievement, but to actually ensure it. Sarah and I believe strongly, and we've read the research that is there, and it's compelling, that to nurture a child's social and emotional development is actually to extend and accentuate and ensure their academic achievement. This is not a nice to have, or if we only had time we could do it. We believe this is a must do. We believe that when you do this well, children do better in school and they do better in life. And that is, there's enough research to prove that that's not just our cherished belief, it's actually scientifically proven. If you spend any time looking at the news, you will see article after article after article that addresses this. We were just talking before the webinar started, there's another one out in the New York Times today that talks about the centrality of developing this emotional and social competence in young people so that they have strength and perseverance, that they are able to be academically successfully and socially successful. And it's really imperative that we do this while students are young so that they get that foundation early. This is just a smattering of articles. We could probably put 100 of these up on the slide, but we wanted you to know that we're not chasing a trend. We were actually ahead of the trend, but more and more parents ask us about this as part of the admission process, so we thought it was really vital to have this webinar so that you could get a little bit of perspective on how we approach this. As I said, there's strong evidence. We could, again, cite many, many studies. This is the most recent from the Aspen Institute, which was an aggregate study that actually looked at different studies that had been done in different, by different scientists and in different journals to look at what the body of evidence was saying about social and emotional learning and what is the evidence for what it does for students in school. This study tells us that social and emotional development is not a unitary thing. It's really quite complex and multidimensional. And if you integrate it into the school in intentional and careful ways, it will have a direct impact on success and how learning happens. This study also spent time examining the major domains of human development, and social, emotional, cognitive, linguistic, and academic development are deeply intertwined and rooted in the brain. So really unpacking that as an academic institution is vital to serving all of the students well. And one of the partnerships we achieve with parents, of course, is to share that so that parents can develop social and emotional capacity at home while we are doing it at school. We think that is actually the perfect complement. So with that, I'm going to pass the rest of the presentation over to Sarah. I'll join you again at the end, but we wanted to give you a sense of the sort of high-level themes, and Sarah's going to take you deeper into how we approach this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eleanor, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm thrilled to be here at Langley as the Director of Social and Emotional Learning, and I think this is such a critical moment in time for us to be doing this work, particularly given all of the research Eleanor mentioned, as well as a lot of the trends that we're currently seeing that really speak to the importance. I wanted to mention, in addition to the evidence from the Aspen Institute that Eleanor mentioned, one of the most powerful studies that I've read is one that was published in 2011 in Child Development. And it was a meta-analysis, meaning that they took results from hundreds of different studies that have been done across the world. I think they included something around 300,000 children that were part of the study, looking at the large impact of social and emotional learning on academic achievement. And one of the things that was most powerful is that for schools that had these programs in place and that really fostered social and emotional growth, there was an on average 11-point gain in academic achievement. And that really speaks to what Eleanor was mentioning, that this is a program and really a mindset about development that is not just to kind of help children, but is to ensure their success, to make them available and really able to engage in the curriculum, to go deeper in it, because they have the tools and strategies to manage the stressors, to manage the different emotions that come up throughout the day. The next slide here, what you'll see are some of the buzzwords. And I wanted to mention this because SEL is one of those topics, a complex one, as Eleanor mentioned, that is defined in many different ways, depending on what you read or what study you're looking at. And there isn't one agreed upon definition. But we know that elements of social awareness, of interpersonal intelligence, of self-awareness or emotional intelligence are key components. We also know that there's a lot of other elements here in terms of relationship skills, growth mindset, empathy, grit, that all play a big role. But what makes it difficult, because there's so much that goes into this, is really defining what it is. And one of the ways that I have really been thinking about SEL and talking with Eleanor, that we've been brainstorming about, is to think about it not only as these different elements of what go into the program, but really what we're trying to achieve. And on this next slide, what you'll see is one of the ways we're thinking about SEL is defining it by the outcome. So our goal with our students at Langley is that upon graduation, they will understand themselves. They can be authentic to who they are and feel comfortable with who they are. They can build productive relationships with others, and they can lead lives of health and fulfillment. And so really the three key areas that I believe are so deeply important that we are trying to grow and foster is for children to be resilient, for children to be adaptable, and for children to be authentic. And when you think about those three words, what we're really thinking about is that when faced with adversity that we know comes throughout childhood and adolescence, we want our children to be able to really overcome that, to deal with that, to face that in a healthy way. We want our children to be able to be adaptable with changes that are thrown at them, adaptable to different environments and diverse interactions and communities they're part of, and to be authentic to themselves in knowing who they are, what they need, what their emotional landscape is, and to be authentic in their relationships. And it's really those three elements that we believe are so critical in having and weaving in and infusing SEL into our curriculum, and to really be the fabric of our school to help our children in those ways. So Eleanor mentioned this a bit already, and I just wanted to dive a bit deeper into it. SEL, again, is not a new concept, but it has had a lot of heightened attention in the media more recently. And I think a large part of that is because we've started to see some concerning trends with our youth that are partly related, we think, to the prevalence of technology, but also just in terms of where the focus has been in society, sort of on the self and on the kind of independent achievement as opposed to community and sort of caring of others. One of the terms that has really resonated for me and that we've been thinking a lot about is Jean Twenge is a psychologist who recently published a book named iGen. And iGen is the term that our children, anywhere born between 1995 and 2012, this is sort of the new name of their generation. And it speaks to not only the prevalence of Apple products like the iPhone and the iPad, but also this more self-focus, which some researchers have referred to as a selfie syndrome. But I think that that is really accurate in terms of where we right now, where society is placing a lot of emphasis on the self. And that the results of this has actually been that we're seeing our teens and our adolescents actually reporting more loneliness. So they're ever connected, they are intensely involved on social media, and yet they're actually reporting an increased level of loneliness. So that is a trend that we are really paying attention to, and we think, again, is not entirely related to electronics, but it might be partially. And it speaks to why this work, really getting in touch with emotions, really understanding how to navigate relationships, is so critically important. Twenge also finds and talks about in her book some research around the decrease we've seen over the past several years in terms of the time children are spending with their friends. So in addition to the increased loneliness, we're actually seeing a decrease in just the time they're spending one-on-one or in small groups with friends outside of school. So I think this is a critical time point that we are supporting children in these ways to prepare them for adulthood so that they can be resilient, they can be adaptable, they can be authentic in their relationships. One of the other sort of societal trends that we're seeing that again speaks to why this work is so important right now is that there has been a huge increase in the types of jobs that are becoming automated, where humans are not necessarily the critical force in jobs that used to be done solely by people. What we are seeing is the jobs that have steady growth, require both technical skill, but also interpersonal skills that require teamwork, collaboration, an ability to read others, an ability to lead effectively with emotional intelligence. So I think we know that on a whole, we see our children struggling in some of these areas, and yet we know that it's where they're going to need to be strong in terms of securing the best jobs for the future. So we really see this as such a critical point in time to be doing this work. One of the ways that we are beginning to apply social and emotional learning at Langley is using the Ruler program that comes out of the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence. We believe that the comprehensive curriculum that really is woven into the fabric of the school is so critically important. And Ruler is really about, the Ruler program is really about shifting the emotional climate in a positive direction for a school. Langley's been doing this work for a long time in terms of a nurturing environment and really speaking to caring and nurturing techniques to use with children and to really grow that aspect of their development. But this is to bring it a step further and to really weave this into our day-to-day work, not only as faculty, but also as teachers and in our work with children. Ruler stands for, as you can see here, recognizing emotions, understanding the causes and consequences of emotions, labeling emotions accurately, expressing emotions appropriately, and regulating emotions effectively when they do come up. And we have begun this work already with our faculty, and we'll be applying it more steadily with students as the year progresses. But we're really excited about what this is going to bring just to the fabric of our school, and is only one part, but we feel a really important part of the work that we're going to be doing. Most importantly, however, we believe that social and emotional learning needs to incorporate the emotional aspects of emotional acuity and intelligence, but also must bring in aspects of cultural responsiveness and health and wellness. We live in a very complex and diverse world. We believe it's critically important in order for our children to be most successful to understand and appreciate differences, to know how to navigate complex situations, to make healthy choices when they're faced with risky decisions or behaviors. So all of these, we believe, come together in a really important way. And we are building a unique and tailored program at Langley, and we are excited for you to learn more about it as you come and sort of see it live in action at our school. One of the things that you'll hear a lot about, and you'll notice on our website as you begin to learn more about Langley, is that we approach education and teaching and our interactions with children across the arc of development, meaning that we know that at every age there are predictable milestones, there are essential questions children are asking, there are essential themes and challenges they're navigating, and that we really want to stay true to the developmental sort of time point at each grade level and really tailor a program and utilize strategies that fit within the developmental realm of the child. At Langley, we really are always impressed with how our teachers really understand the particular needs of the age group they work with and how to really tailor the education to that, where the child is on the arc of development. We're doing the same thing with our social and emotional learning program and really creating a comprehensive program that works across the arc. So here's just an example, if we think about the domain of emotional intelligence, how we might begin to talk about these aspects of emotion identification starting in preschool all the way up through middle school. So beginning in preschool, we're working on just building an emotion vocabulary, knowing what words to use to explain how that child is feeling. As they get into lower school, thinking about perspectives for different sides of the story, and not only understanding the different perspectives, but having empathy for the different sides. And as we get into middle school, utilizing that emotion vocabulary to really be able to express needs and wants in friendships, to know how to appreciate if the relationship is healthy, and how to recognize if it's unhealthy, and then what to do about it. So all of these domains are so critically linked throughout development. And what we are doing at Langley is creating that program where there'll be continuity across the arc that really builds upon itself, creating the graduates that we feel like are best prepared for high school. We also recognize that some of the most important work in raising moral, caring, and happy children happens at home. And we believe so deeply in partnering with parents, in working hand in hand, so that we can create parallels between the work that you're doing at home with the work that we're doing here at school. And this is just a few examples of books that we have read and really been impressed with in terms of strategies and techniques that parents can use, but that are really parallel and continuous with the work that we're doing here at school.
So one of the things that we say a lot on this campus is that if you get the foundation right, anything and everything is possible. And I certainly believe, after hearing all that Sarah has shared about the importance of social and emotional learning, the complexity of it, its direct relationship to academic achievement and social adjustment, and the necessary skills that children will need when they leave us, when they go into the work world, and sort of the longevity of this, you've got to start doing this work in the earliest years. And it's actually an advantage to do so. So as Sarah said, when you think about that early part of the arc, giving 3- and 4-year-olds the opportunity to develop an emotional vocabulary and the skills to understand and refine how they're feeling and give that voice sets them on a journey that will allow them to develop ever more complex and nuanced understanding of their emotional lives, and the ability to work with lots of different types of people, to take care of themselves, to make good decisions. And if you do that work in the earliest years, then by the time they get to high school, they are ready for some of the complexities that come with being a young adolescent who's going to be faced with a number of different kinds of choices and decisions. So one of the things that's true about our model is that we believe that these foundational years are essential, and getting them right is so important. And our social and emotional learning program fits directly into that. We do this hand in hand with academics so that kids are put on a path to really achieve all that they want to be. And again, as Sarah mentioned, there's some really neat evidence that has followed kindergartners, for instance, over 20 and 30 years to see how they are as young adults. And what we know is when they were doing this well in kindergarten, it actually correlated to how they did in later life. So we would encourage you to come to Langley and learn a little bit more about this, to meet Sarah, to meet me, because we obviously could spend probably the rest of the afternoon talking about this because we feel passionate about it. And so how could you do that? Well, we have an information session on October 18th at 9 a.m. here on campus. And we would really invite you to come and see this, to see some of our students in action, to meet some of the teachers who are essential to this work, and just to be on campus to get a feel for how we're doing this. You may also schedule a tour with our admission office. You can submit an application early to initiate the process. And there's a little bit of information here on the slide about what you need to do to apply. But I think at this point, since we have about 5 or 6 minutes left, I'm going to go to questions because we think it's useful to get some of those questions going and to really be able to hear what's on your mind. So the first question is, can you give some ideas of how Langley's approach to balancing SEL can be implemented at home with my children?
Yeah.
So Sarah, why don't you take a crack at that?
Absolutely, it's a great question. And one of the really wonderful ways, both about the ruler techniques or tools that I was mentioning before, as well as the program that we're developing here at Langley, is that so much of it is relevant not only to school, but at home. So for example, one of the core ideas that we are working on with our youngest children are just building emotion vocabulary. And the more words that we can use and model with our children, in terms of identifying our own emotions, the more they can begin to weave that into their language as well. So I would say that one of the biggest ways as parents we can do this, build their emotion vocabulary, is use the words as we're describing how we're feeling. If children say that they're upset, to give them some ideas of why they might be upset. Are they angry? Are they frustrated? To get them using those emotions and describing kind of what they're feeling. And I think to also have conversations, whatever it is that it might be going on outside of school, in your home life, with friends in the neighborhood, to just have conversations that help children to take perspective, to think about the other side. And I think that those are two foundational skills that very much kind of go hand in hand with the work that we're doing.
So another participant has asked, with increasing research on SEL's importance, what are the long-range differences that we see in our graduates as compared to some of their peers? And what happens to them when they leave us and head to high school campuses and are with students who are coming from lots of different kinds of environments? Are they impacted in ways, obviously, that we have just articulated that are extremely positive, but are there any ways that they feel different? And I guess what I would say, and then I'll certainly ask Sarah to jump in, is that we track a lot of feedback from our graduates about their transition to high school and actually even college and beyond. And we get a lot of data from the schools where we place our students. And what we hear over and over and over again is that Langley students are beautifully prepared for the rigors and challenges of academic work at the high school level, but they make a pretty seamless transition into the social environment of high school. And one of the things that we know is that we believe powerfully that our model gives children a reset. In other words, it's an opportunity to reinvent themselves, to make a new group of friends, to retain their Langley friendships. And what I hear over and over again is that they do that really well. They get new friends, they merge into these new environments which they see as an opportunity to meet new people, but they also will hang out on the weekends with some of their buddies. And we hear over and over again that they know how to make friends, they know how to stand up for themselves, they know how to offer an opinion, to take a different perspective, to argue passionately for their point of view. So we see it as an enhancement. I've never heard anyone say that students coming out of the school are held back by that. And I hope that they are citizens who raise the bar, frankly, in class discussions. And when peer pressure arises or when there's a difficult social decision to be made, I think our kids will be among the first to say, I'm going to go my own way because I know my values and I know what I can do.
Yeah, I agree entirely, Eleanor. And I think that, one of the most exciting things about our graduates is that they can model healthy decision making and perspective taking in high school. And it's so powerful for teens when it comes from another teen. And so I think that what we're really doing is they are bringing a perspective that's so important that I think they'll find others that share that perspective with them, but can also be leaders in really helping other teens to kind of get to know themselves better or take a different perspective. And I think that is incredibly powerful.
So we have time probably for one last question. And this question is, how does Langley's approach to balancing social and emotional and academics differ from other schools? Do you provide a more intentional time for this? And is that all grade levels? I guess the first thing I would say is I think one of the things that absolutely distinguishes our program is the multidisciplinary way we incorporate emotional acuity with cultural responsiveness and health and wellness. Many schools do some parts of those things, but I have seen very few who interweave them and see the inherent interconnectedness of those issues. The other commitment that we have made is to empower the adults in the community to be part of this movement, for lack of a better word. Sarah is one person. She can't do all of this work herself, but she is the facilitator to helping raise the bar and develop the competencies of our teachers to do this work. Because the reality is, you don't do social and emotional learning at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoons, 1 day a week. Social and emotional learning is happening all the time. So our goal is to empower all of the members of this community to be able to do that work with children as the need arises. And then Sarah can speak a little bit about the intentional ways we are creating space within the curriculum to go deep. But I would say I think the first two issues are rather distinctive in the way we are approaching it.
Yes, absolutely. I think one of the things we've seen a lot is that there are tons of prepackaged programs for SEL that are great in their own right, and they have lots of strengths, and yet what they lack is the comprehensiveness. They do not incorporate necessarily the 3 domains we believe are critically important. They also are not necessarily tailored in any way to the particular school. And they're typically only for certain ages. So there are a few that are comprehensive K-12, but many will be just for middle school or for elementary school. What we are doing here that I think is so unique and really speaks to the intentionality is we're building a program that is tailored again across the arc of development, that really fits within our community, and that is malleable, that we can change and shift as needed, as issues come up, as challenges arise. We can really think about how these core themes and domains can be put in a way and infused in a way that's going to make the biggest difference. And I think the intentionality, that's a word I come back to often, and I know that Eleanor and I have spoken about a lot, that we're trying to think about not only lessons or activities we can do, but ways that we can really think about how this fits in with the curriculum. We are so dedicated here at Langley to inquiry-based learning, and this fits in very nicely. So how do we get kids talking about and asking questions that may go deeper into a character and why that character did what he or she did, or to think about historical figures and to think about the perspectives or the identities that arose and that were built on that individual's history. So there's a lot of really, I think, nuanced ways that we can build this in that are unique and that we're all very excited about.
So with that, I'm going to thank everyone for being part of the conversation this afternoon and remind you that we have a bank of our webinars on our website. If you'd like to go back, please invite a friend or share it. We are just delighted that you've taken an interest in this. We do think this is an important movement, and it's been so exciting to have Sarah join the faculty here at Langley, and we really hope we'll see you on campus very soon so that you can learn a little bit more about this in person. Thank you again for being part of the conversation.
Thank you.